Good morning, boys and girls. I'm not playing a game yet because I'm not having my coffee. I'm going to try and probably wean myself off the coffee. Don't know. We'll see. Anyway, thought I'd make a little video about pins. One of the most fundamental and useful and powerful tactics that we have at our disposal. Now, obviously, when you're playing chess, and the better you get, it's tactics upon tactics within tactics, hiding other tactics and avoiding tactics. So it gets a lot more complicated, but pins are just bread and butter stuff. They are part of the essential building blocks of tactical sequences. So I'm going to show you, for example, I think this is a complete dog's dinner. We'll keep it polite at this time in the morning. Right, so we have my opponent here plays the King's Gambit. So this, I have to tell you, confession, this is like played at 2 a.m, 2:30 a.m. I'm lying in bed, like for some reason my brain's going, can't sleep, let's play a bit of chess. So I'm playing Blitz because I'm dicking about. And my opponent plays the King's Gambit, I play the Falkbeer counter gambit, and the correct move here is for pawn to take Yer. My opponent does this, and then I do this. And then he makes the blunder move, right? Now, I know that it's a blunder if they do that immediately. And I know that the move is Queen h4 check. And if they block with g3, this is a very, very common pattern, not only in the King's Gambit, but in many other positions. And opponent plays g3. I'm melting. Suns come out. And then obviously I play Queen e4 check. And now I am forking the king and the rook and both of these pawns as well. So happy, happy days. Opponent blocks with queen and I obviously take the rook. I think, what can possibly go wrong? And then my opponent completely throws me a curveball. Well, he kind of does. Knight here. And suddenly I realise that my queen has nowhere to go. Okay, now, full disclosure, I'm in a complete donkey, okay? It's middle of the night, I don't know what's going on, I'm bewildered, and I'm not playing my normal chess. Now, the first thing you have to notice is, my queen's not actually attacked, so I don't actually have to do anything. What I do in the game was I trade my queen for their bishop, and then go on to lose. However, there was a better move. Other than giving up my queen for a lowly priest. Okay, and what is the better move? So what we have to do is we have to look at the resources that we've got on the board. Right. My problem is I was looking at these squares here, that's it. Right. And I literally was trying to solve this. You know, you see there's sometimes mini problems, you know, white to move and mate in 2, and it's like a 3x3 square. That's all I was doing. I was doing that. And we're going to get onto this later on in another video, that the importance of looking at the whole board and looking at what else you've got. Now, the move that I should have played here, bishop to g4, okay, pinning the knight on the queen. And normally, I like to think that I'm capable of spotting pins. And here, of course, I'm adding a second attacker to there. This bishop is also pinned, by the way, on the king. Right, so both these pieces are technically pinned, and I'd have been absolutely fine, and the evaluation doesn't come on immediately. So, never mind. So next, what I thought I'd do, here's another 5-minute blitzy that I played this morning against James the Strong, which is a great name. Okay, I've got the white pieces here, and we get a carrow, and of course we go into the von Hennig. Right, so I've given up my e-pawn, and I develop my bishop super quick, and blah, blah, blah. And if bishop now comes out here to pin my knight, then it's not ideal for black, but my opponent is cannier than that and pushes e6. I castle, dark square bishop comes out, preparing to castle. And now, so what we're doing is we're particularly looking for pins in this game, okay? I pin the knight. That means, it doesn't mean the knight can't move. If it was a king behind it, that would be an absolute pin, and it can't legally move because you're not allowed to put yourself in check. This is only a queen, so the knight can technically move, but I will take the queen. He kicks, I retreat. Is he going to double kick? No, he isn't. I also noticed here that because the f-pawn has already disappeared, I have a route back out. Even if he wants the double kick, I'm not going to be forced here and trading pawns if he wants to trade off. So retreat that bishop. He pushes another pawn and a3. So I'm just giving my bishop a little foxhole here where it can hide and keep his sniper, sights trained on the g8 square, which is where the king is likely to castle. And back goes the bishop and castles, okay? So now this is not a pin. I mean, technically between them, these two pawns are pinned. They can't both move, but either of them can move currently. All right, so now I decide to bring my knight into the center of the board. This is the center. This is generally a good, happy place for a horse. Bishop comes back now defending the pinned knight. Now what this has done is it's broken the pin. The knight was pinned because if it moved, the bishop would fall, sorry, the queen would fall, but now the bishop's in the way, so now the knight is free to move. I now retreat my bishop because I'm thinking, well, there's not much joy to be had on that particular diagonal at this point in time. Why don't we now address our attention to this h6 hook? It's called a hook because it's moved forwards, right? So it's bent black's pawn structure here. So now that becomes a target. So maybe my bishop, it might find its way to d2, for example, with ideas of taking out that pawn. Maybe if I can put my queen, for example, on g3, pinning this pawn, which means that this pawn is not defended. But first we're going to improve our other pieces. So my knight comes around from c3 to here. Very often a good idea. Now he moves his queen over there. I'm not sure about this move. I just take the opportunity to push c3, reinforce d4, which of course is defending my knight in the middle. And he comes to attack my pawn chain, but this is okay. I mean, if he takes here, I'll take back. Probably won't take with the knight. And now I move my bishop to g3. You said it might have come to d2. Now it's come back on the same diagonal to g3, and this is not a pin. What this is, it's like if that was black's piece here, that would be a pin, but it's my piece. So what this is it's an X-ray, right? I'm preparing a discovered attack against the queen. So my knight could, for example, take that pawn, and king and rook can't really take back because, oh no, my queen, okay? So what does he do? Comes in and harasses my knight with his knight, which is not really the idea. So here, I guess I could have just gone here and won myself a rook. That is not what I do in the game because I'm remembering this guy with his very special job, right? Remember, we've got this set of not really pinned pawns, but it's like there's probably some logical computer sequence. It's an X and or one of these things. Yeah, either pawn can move, but both pawns cannot. Okay, so here I decide to take out the f pawn rather than come to here and take out the rook. Discovered attack on the queen, and now the queen moves to here, and now this pawn is not technically pinned because my knight's also in the way, right? But the minute this knight moves, this pawn is pinned. So my knight now comes around here and takes the pawn on h6. And you're thinking, well, that looks a bit silly because it's, you're just giving up a whole knight there for a pawn. And black does indeed agree with you and snatches the pawn. But now I lift my rook to f2. So what's the idea of this? Am I wanting to double up here? I'm trying to remember my own thought process. Now this pawn is it's still pinned. It is defended by the queen. So let's see what Hunty's idea is there. His king moves, right? Now I take out this pawn here with a discovered attack against the knight, but the knight's amply defended by queen and the other knight, so he takes here. Remember, this pawn is still pinned, right? It's a key feature of the position. So my knight might come in. So anytime you see a pinned piece, you want to be going, okay, well, how can we apply pressure to the pinned piece? Attacking it with a pawn is great if you can do that. Otherwise, just line up everything else against it. So knight d4. Looking at this pin piece. Yes, it's defended once, twice, 3 times, but that's not the point. It can't move. It's in an absolute pin, which means it's shielding the king, so it legally cannot move. Now he moves his queen away, and now he's lined up a kind of very long kind of X-ray against my king. Right, still generally a sensible thing. Lining up your long-range pieces against your opponent's soft and dangly bits is a very, very good idea. Also notice, because this pawn is pinned, it is not defending this square, and it is not defending this square. That means, for example, I could stick my knight on here, quite happily, should I want. What else do we notice is pinned on this board, right, from this move? Okay, after this move, just a couple of moves back, the king has now put itself in line with that bugger there, right? Which means this knight is also pinned. Okay, so now let's apply the same principle. Bishop pins this, rook pins this. Okay, both are pinned. That means this pawn is not defending this square, okay, or this square. This knight is not defending any of these squares, right? Any of these squares are not defended by that knight. Therefore, after this sequence, and the queen moves, okay, queen h5 check is on. Why? Because this square, although it appears that the knight is looking at it, the knight is tied up. It is tethered. It cannot move because it's in an absolute pin. Cannot move or else it puts black in check. Illegal. So now the king has to move. Now my bishop comes in here, okay, and pins the knight on the king again. This pawn is no longer pinned because the king has vacated, right? So now we use another pin, pinning the knight on the... So now it's still the knight can't take the queen. Now his knight comes in attacking my rook. I come back here, still taking advantage of another square that this knight is not really guarding, okay, with a fork on king and knight. So what's he going to do? Plays knight g5, right? And anytime you block a check with a piece, you're pinning it. So this is pinned, that was pinned, no longer pinned, all right? And of course, we now have a pinned piece here. And what do we do to a pinned piece? Well, we want to cause it grief. We want to attack it, ideally with Harry, Harry. Okay, this is great. That can't move, right? Harry is coming up threatening to kill the horse. Goodbye, horse. The king, by the way, has now moved a second time, which means that this is no longer pinned. No longer pinned, right? Pushes h5 to attack my queen. I push g6 because that comes with check, and that beats a queen attack. Now, should the king move to here or here, noting in my noggin, guess what? He's pinned his own knight again, if it's on this diagonal. Okay, so where's the king going to go? King goes there. And now I come in with a fork, grab a pawn, fork on queen and king, which will force really a trade of queens. Okay, he misses that. He's only got a minute on the clock. I take his queen and he resigns. I thought that was a really, really instructive example there. Now let me show you a position that I played later this morning, also in the wee small hours. Okay, and this comes from the Sicilian Grand Prix attack. My opponent here is rated 1575, and I felt like I'd got him on the ropes to this point. But here I blunder. Right, I play the move pawn to h3, and this looks reasonable. You know, it's a move that you could make an argument for. Right, his bishop doesn't have that many places to go, so on and so forth, but is not the best move at all in the position. By the way, earlier on in this game, I had blundered my queen to a discovered attack. Okay, and but on the positive side, my opponent's a little bit short of pawns. But I'm still in this. And there is one move here that really ties the whole position together. I've got my knights paired there, which means that the queen can't take either of them because they defend each other. This is not a bad setup. Okay, One of the downsides of it is that it doesn't completely maximise the scope of each knight to control as many squares as possible on the board, because one of the squares that this knight is controlling is occupied by one of my own pieces, and vice versa. Okay, so but by the same token, they are defending each other, so it's not a bad thing. There is one best move here, one really good move that secures white maybe not say a winning position, but a very meaningful advantage. Okay, if you pause if you need to, if you want to find it. Okay, and I'm going to stick lines on now and see if this works. And the move that I missed was bishop to d4. Bishop to d4 simply pins the knight on the king. Okay, and there we go. Bishop d4 is a great move, but also bishop f4. Bishop f4 is the second best according to the machine, pushing the queen away, because I'm attacking this knight. And right now, this knight could take me, if I recapture, it's a trade of knights, but this move would stop that. This move would stop that idea in its tracks. And he's defended twice, okay? But let's say black did something innocuous now, right? We've got bishop takes f6 as the best move here, right? Bishop takes, or h3. h3 kicking the other bishop, but bishop takes f6. And look now, the best move, he's either got to run away, well, he can't go there. He's only got one place to go, or queen takes. Okay, and that's it, and white is in a winning position. So there's the point, right? We really need to dial in our pin senses, because it's so powerful. And shame that I missed this particular move at this point. h3 was a great move, but not on that turn. h3 would have been fine if I'd done this first. So there you go figure. Anyway, so remember your pins, guys. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. See you later.